Okay.
If you want to be louder.
Sounds good.
We're going to start here in just a few minutes. If you can find your seat. Chavarim umishpacha bevakasha, friends and family, please return to your seats wherever you're going to be seated during our presentation today. Feel free to grab a cup of coffee or something to chew on. Perhaps you might want to also bring a notebook so you can take some notes. We did get permission from Eliezer to live stream, so if you have friends or family that weren't able to make it, they can tune in as well. Just go through our website for that. Well, Shalom Chavarim, thank you for joining us tonight at the synagogue for our event where we're going to be having our guest speaker from Eretz Israel, Eliezer Braun, share with us what's going on in Israel, share with us some of the prophetic things that he has been teaching, share with us some of the wonderful art that his wife, his Eshet Chayil, does, and so many more things. We do have treats here, but please, during the presentation, make sure you give good attention to Eliezer. And so we're just going to give him the time that he needs to give his presentation here today. But let's open up in a little bit tefillah, a little bit of prayer. Vina Malkeinu, we just thank you for this time. We pray, Father, that you would encourage, that you would lift up your people, that we would be inspired and to love and good mitzvot, Father, and to your Kedusha, your holiness, Father. We just thank you for this time. We pray that you be with Eliezer, and it's in Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. Well, Eliezer Braun, please, we would love to hear from you tonight.
But you know, simple buttons are complicated. Okay, I usually start out with a joke, but I do have to tell you that you're going to have to extend an absolute maximum amount of grace to me because I didn't sleep last night. I got on a flight from Chicago at 8:30 this morning and got to see, I told you, the simple things are complicated. And immediately drove the 300 miles from the airport to Spokane. And by the way, it's an absolutely beautiful drive. It really is. But I have to tell you, unfortunately, what usually keeps me awake when I'm exhausted, I have to admit, is junk food. Yeah, well, this doesn't need it. Thank you for inviting me to speak this evening. I usually start by telling a joke. So, you know, as we say on Pesach, Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol haleilot. Why should this night be different than all other nights? So a joke. Any of you hear the joke about the rabbi and the pope? If you did, you know it? Okay, so here's the thing. The chief rabbi of Israel goes to Italy, and he visits the Pope in the Vatican, and he walks into the Pope's office, and there's a gold telephone on the corner of the Pope's desk. The chief Rabbi says, well, what is this for? The Pope says, that's my direct line to God. Well, I have an urgent matter I have to take up with God. Can I use your phone? Well, of course. So the rabbi speaks on the phone to God for 3 minutes. He gets off. He says, all my theological dilemmas have all been answered. Magnificent conversation. Thank you, your whatever, your Pope. And he says, but how much do I owe you? Well, the Pope says, $100,000. Well, the rabbi thinks the price is a little stiff. However, listen, the honorable men he pays. Just so happens 6 months later, the Pope comes to Israel, makes a reciprocal visit to the chief rabbi's office. Lo and behold, he walks into the office. On the corner of the rabbi's desk is the golden, I'm really glad that you got the idea from me. You know what? Just like you used the phone by me, I also have many urgent matters that I have to ask God about. I just don't understand this. Should I accept it? Should I question it? Chief rabbi says, please use the phone. Spends 3 hours on the phone. Turns to the rabbi and he said, I've never ever been so blessed to have a conversation with the Lord. Now I really can be more effective among my crowd. How much do I owe you? The rabbi says, you don't owe me anything. Pope says, I don't understand. You're by me in the Vatican, talking on our phone for 3 minutes, $100,000. Here I speak to God for 3 hours, and it's nothing. The rabbi says, that's because here in Jerusalem, it's a local telephone call. This is a get-to-know-you evening. Next time I come, night, strictly Jewish jokes and Israeli jokes. We are really, really living in challenging and also, I may say, very difficult times. I live in a community in Israel. My family made Aliyah. We made Aliyah in 1983. And we thought that the kettle was boiling then, but it's nothing compared to the way it's boiling today. We are facing challenges on every one of our borders. We're facing the possibility, if you keep a track of the news, it was just announced yesterday by Iran that they have started to spin their centrifuges again, and they're enriching their uranium. Something's going on, and we're living right in the midst of it. And the great thing about talking to people like yourselves is you have such a heart, such a love for Israel. You know Israel is so important. It's almost as if you're there with us. We're living in times that the perception of good and evil has become completely mixed up. And people simply do not know how to differentiate between that which is good, that which is evil. And it's scary. When we have these people who are represented in the Congress of the United States openly spewing anti-Semitism, open spewing lies about Israel, it's frightful. When I grew up, it was difficult for me to make a choice between Republican, Democrat, because there were people like Hubert Humphrey. I mean, there were good Democratic politicians. And what's happening now is that the Democratic, half of the population of this country is being hijacked by liberals. And not just liberals, okay, off the chart liberals. But there is some hope. An individual like this gives us hope. I listen to her speak in the United Nations every time, and she just spews morality. She challenges the entire world. Some people say to me, well, every side, every story, every conflict has two sides. Excuse me? Every conflict does not have two sides. When you say that a conflict that everyone has their side and that, you can understand this, you can understand that, what it means is you now lack the ability to distinguish between good and bad. And people who are so obsessed with being politically correct, they cannot see through the evil. And this is the difference. This is the Israel that blesses the world. Look at this. The Israelis are winning chemistry and this. I mean, do you know what's going on in cancer research in Israel? You know that Israel's now producing water out of air? And as a result, that purified water, which is what is created, is being used in small towns, communities in Africa who have no access to clean water. I mean, I can go forever on explaining the blessing that Israel is to the world. Why? And here's the difference. The difference is, and I spent 20 years in the Israeli army, we stand in front of our citizens. In fact, we stand in front of many of our enemies' citizens. I was under such strict rules before I would open fire that in the process, I was actually in situations where I risked my own life. They stand behind their citizens because they know, just like the leader of Hezbollah said, we know how to get to the Jews. The Jews love life, so we're going to kill them. This is the difference. We maintain a level of morality which is simply non-existent in the rest of the world. So you would think, from paying attention to the United Nations, paying attention to everything that's going on. I mean, Syria is on the United Nations. Syria and other countries that are the worst violators of human rights are on United Nations Human Rights Committee. Do you know, and basically all you hear about is the world's obsession with Israel. The world's obsession with Israel. Do you know what would happen if we, God forbid, were to withdraw from Judea and Samaria? We'd have Hamas and Hezbollah right now. Why don't people understand? I've had the privilege when I was working for an organization, now I'm independent. Waha, yay, I don't have a board of directors telling me what to do. It's wonderful. I resigned 3 years ago. And it's good for you too because I don't take up an offering. Even though what I did for many years was collect for wonderful causes in Israel. But the focus is on Israel's territorial dispute. Let me tell you something. If a Palestinian state is ever created, which it won't be, that'll only be step one in the ultimate dream, which is to destroy the state of Israel. Look at, this is a list of basically all of the territorial disputes that exist between different nations in the world. Do you know how many there are? Well over 100. Does anybody hear anything about these disputes, these land disputes, or these, or these, or these, or these, or these? And on and on and on. Chances are, if you looked at each one individually, you wouldn't even know that it existed. So my question is, why? Why does the world consistently step on Israel? And I can make a list of 1,000 things without very much effort of what Israel contributes to the world. When there's a disaster in the world, who are the first people to show up to help? Israel. When there was the earthquake in Haiti, there are 3 members of our community who have a bag by their front door, and whenever they get a call, boom, picked up, taken to the airport with their bags, off to the spot, whatever trouble spot there is in the world. Discoveries, inventions, endless of what contribution is made by 9 million people. What percentage of that is what percentage is that of the world's population? It's infinitesimal. Is that a word? I don't know. I like making up words. I mean, agriculture. Israel brought, in addition now to producing water from air, Israel discovered, manufactured drip technology, which uses a fraction of the water that used to be used for agriculture, saving enormous amounts of water. Israel, I don't know, it was like 6, 7 years ago, Israel had 5 or 6, thank God, we had a very, very rainy winter. And the Kinneret has filled up about 4 meters, okay? They had stopped drawing water from the Kinneret. So Israel had to do something because we had like 5 or 6 years, 5 or 6 years of really dry, and they were talking about, okay, you can't water your lawns, you have to, we put 2 levers on our toilet, whatever it's called, we call it a Niagara, in what? Number 1 and number 2. By the way, you know why it's called Niagara? Because the Niagara Falls. Okay, so, all right, okay, so people were being encouraged to take short showers. And the country, for 4 or 5 years, smelled. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so what did Israel do? Israel went on a crash program to desalinate water from the Mediterranean. And 2 years ago, all of a sudden, someone gets on there's an announcement from the government that says, we're actually shutting down part of one of the desalination plants. We have too much water, we don't know what to do with it. Only as, you see, because we don't whine. If there's a challenge, oh, what are we going to do? I don't know. We'll never be able to overcome this. Israel's population in 1948 was 600,000. Okay? Now it's 9 million. What happens if back in 1948 they said, we're not letting people in. We're going to cut out the law of return. No immigrants because we don't have water for them. No, we discovered how to produce water, how to divide it up, how to use it properly. Because one of the great things about Israel is we take a challenge, something that seems impossible to overcome, we make it possible. More. Israel produces more scientific papers per capita than any other country by a large margin. 109 scientific papers per 10,000 people, as well as one of the highest per capita rates of patents filed. In proportion to its population, Israel has the largest number of medical, agricultural, high-tech, and computer inventions, medical research, and startup companies in the world. You don't like Israel? You better throw out your computers. You don't like Israel? Well, they're developing all kinds of shots for various different forms of cancer. You know what? May as well just die. Why? Why this focus on Israel? Well, I came up with a couple reasons. One, I think it goes all the way back to the day of Abraham. You see, Abraham was born into an idolatrous world. And who makes up the idols? Man. Okay? So really, who has the control? Not the idol. It's the man who made the idol. And along comes Abraham, and Abraham says, these idols, they're nothing. They're clay. They're made by man. How can they have any power? And he said, no. Give up your idols. The power, every blessing that we have in life comes from a sovereign, indivisible God. And you know what? People didn't want to hear it. Because what does it require to believe that all of our blessings come from God? How many people do you know who are really rich and say, I'm rich because God made me rich? No, they say, I'm rich because I worked hard. I deserve it. It's me, I. That's idolatry. Along comes Abraham and says, no. If God didn't intend for you to be blessed, you would have nothing. And all blessings and everything we have comes from God. And that's a message that the world does not want to hear, because man is selfish. Man wants to take the credit for everything he has. Here's another one. Jews are rich and control international finance. You know why? We control international finance. First of all, we don't. I'm not rich. Okay? I'm rich where it's important, in relationships with my wife, children, my grandchildren. That's what rich is. We say in Hebrew, mi sameach, mi ashir, misha sameach bechelko. Who is rich? He who is happy and content with his lot in life. So we have different definitions. And why are we so good when it comes to finance and banking and the Rothschilds and all these other people, okay? Why the accusations? Because during the Middle Ages, for hundreds of years, Christianity related to usury, lending money, banking, all that, as a filthy profession. So what do? They give it to the Jews. And now we're being accused of being something that the church created. And here's the main thing. The continued existence of the Jewish people of Israel. The fact that God is doing exactly what he said with Israel that he would do, bringing them back, is the biggest threat to the church. Because the church who threw Israel and the Jews away and said, now, because Israel and the Jews sinned, we're the new Israel. Okay? And no, it doesn't work that way. That's God's decision. God makes up his mind who he's going to, and each one of us have a God-given talent that we need to find in our life. Each one of us are capable of contributing. It doesn't mean that Jews are superior or better than anyone else. It means we were given a covenant. And part of the church now is really split. Because there's part of the church that says, yes, now we have no choice. We have to recognize, we have to come to the fact that God is obviously keeping the scriptures alive because they're returning en masse. I mean, for heaven's sakes, Israel is now the largest Jewish population in the world. Is that a mistake? And then part of the church is saying, no, you know what the new thing is now? They're not really Jews. It's an accident. The people that have no historical claim or a connection to the land, they've stolen the identity of Israel. Listen, and what's the other threat? I'll tell you, my experience when I was growing up, the accusation of deicide. You would be surprised how much of the church still blames the Jews for the death of Jesus. when I was a young boy, we can all look back on our lives and we can look at experiences that we have had that really form who we are today. I grew up in a secular Jewish home in Chicago. Our Friday night was we lit Shabbat candles. We said, Baruch atah Adonai melech borei pri hagafen. And then we blew the candles out. And then my mother brought out a big slab of ham. That's how I grew up. But you know, we are so shaped by the experiences we have. And when I was like 5 or 6 years old, going to elementary school, carrying my books, you know, I don't know why it is that back then they didn't think of putting books in a backpack. Any of us, any other people here old enough like me, this is how we carried our books. And if God forbid one of the books fell out and fell, you know, dropped on the floor, I mean, we're in serious doo-doo. Okay, because we pick it up and then the other ones fall out. And there was a Catholic school right across from my elementary school. And these three, at that time, look, you know what biryonim are in Hebrew? These big, muscular guys. Okay, they were probably midgets. It's just that they were twice the size that I was at that age. Came up to me, pushed the books out of my arms and said, "Dirty kike, you killed my Lord and Savior, Jesus." And then, when I started speaking in churches, Messianic congregations, home groups, I started reading the New Testament. And you know what? If they read the New Testament, which I understand the Catholic Church denied people to read because maybe they would have discovered the truth. Look at what it says in the New Testament. I laid down my life, no one takes it from me, but I laid down of my own accord. Okay? In other words, the death of the Lord was not about punishment, but it was about salvation. It wasn't about blaming anyone. It was to bring people together, not to cry out for vengeance and punishment, but to bring reconciliation among humanity. And it's not poured out against anyone. It's poured out for many, for all. I mean, okay, why do I even bring this up? You'd be surprised how many people, not necessarily you that I speak to, say to me, how am I supposed to respond to people when they make these accusations? So I feel that when I'm speaking, I have to give you a little chomer, material, okay? Because you can't stay silent, okay? You have to get in their face. This is the greatest. Why do you think also I come and I speak to groups all over the place, all in so many different countries? Because I figure between either being Jewish or having Jewish ancestry, or being descendants of northern Israel, or being grafted in to the Commonwealth of Israel, you're all part of the nation. I don't know, I live in an Orthodox community. I may be ostracized for life if they hear me say that, but it's okay, I don't care. Anyhow, in Romans 11, I mean, how can you possibly say it any clearer? You are the branch. And any of you ever see a branch being suspended in midair without being attached to a trunk? No. What is the trunk? It's Israel. Okay? Without Israel, you can't be grafted in. Do not be arrogant, oh my God, but tremble. For if God did not spare the natural branches, who makes you think he's going to spare you hanging there in midair? I mean, to me, it's so clear. Oh, yeah, this is a great one. I'll mention the name because he's not alive anymore. The first year that I was speaking, traveling and speaking. It goes back about 20 years. I went to the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, if any of you know what that is. And Jerry Falwell asked me to go out to lunch with him. And I went out to lunch with Jerry Falwell, and that was an interesting experience because I ordered a salad. Jerry Falwell ordered a plate of shrimp, crab, all those bottom dwellers. Is that what it's called in English? And then he turns to me and he says, "Well, Eliezer, Jesus' blood wipes out all sin. You can eat whatever you want. You can do whatever you want because Jesus' blood." So I turned to Reverend Falwell and I said, "Oh, does that mean that I can go out and fornicate? I can go out and steal? I can go out and rob? Do anything I want?" "Oh, no, of course, that's not what I mean." So I said, "Well, what exactly do you mean?" And it scared the heck out of me because he had a following. I mean, he was like Mr. Chief Baptist. He had a following of tens of millions of Baptists. He didn't know how to answer me. That's frightening. Okay? Did God reject his people? I mean, it says it so clearly. By no means. I'm an Israelite myself, a descendant of Abraham from the tribe of Benjamin. God did not reject his people for whom blah, blah. If some of the branches have been broken off, and you, though a wild olive shoot, have been grafted in among the others and now share in the nourishing sap from the olive root, do not consider yourself to be superior to those other branches. If you do, consider this. You do. I mean, this is good stuff. You do not support the root, but the root supports you. That's how things work in nature. You will say then, branches were broken off so that I could be grafted in. Granted, but they were broken off because of unbelief, and you stand by faith. Do not be arrogant, but tremble. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he would not spare you either. This is just amazing stuff. Right? Do not think that I have come to abolish the law, blah, blah. Okay. Not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. I don't understand it. Doesn't the church read the Bible? I mean, for I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Listen, you know what the world is like today? If you repeat something over and over and over and over again, and it's a lie, they'll believe it. You know who said that? Adolf Hitler. And look at what's going on, okay? Auschwitz was liberated by the Russians. Bergen-Belsen by the Americans. I've been to almost all the camps and several times. Only 75 years separates us from the ovens of Europe. And look what's going on in Europe. It's scary. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. It's happening. You know what? One of the proudest moments of my life was when in 1983, I was granted one of these. It's an Israeli passport. 2,000 years we prayed to be able to reunite with our country and have a sovereign state. And by the way, the name of the state is not Judah. The name of the state is Israel. Because the miracle that we see today of Judah coming back, honestly, it's a magnificent miracle. but it's only this much of the miracle to come, because all of Israel is going to come back. Well, I'm being politically correct with that. And you know how special it is? However, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when it will no longer be said, as surely as the Lord lives who brought the Israelites out of Egypt. We don't say that anymore, because the day is now here where God is bringing Israel home. For I will restore them to the land I gave their ancestors. Even if we're bad people, God is going to restore Israel. You know why? Because he's doing it for his name's sake. He's doing it to show the entire world, I'm God, and I can do anything. Whole world against you? No problem. I will restore Israel, and I will protect them. And if you look at the wars, and you look at why is it that we have the ability, the intelligence to develop weapons, to maintain superiority technologically, which is not getting closer. The technological gap between us and those that want to wipe us out is only expanding. Why? Because of God. Because we studied the Torah. Okay, and you study the Talmud, it's enough to drive you nuts. It's 45, have you ever had 45 different opinions? And they all make sense? Okay, but you see what that does? That exercise of studying the Bible and the oral tradition, it develops the mind. Okay? We have 50 different opinions. And the thing about Israelis are, even if they agree with you, they've got to find something to disagree about. Because it's in our DNA. But that's what makes us special. I love Hayovel. Have any of you been on? Ellen and I are always up to Har Bracha. Did you hear Ellen in me speak? Har Bracha?
I was there in January
2016. We don't make it to all the groups, but we make it almost to all the groups. You got to come. This is like the greatest thing. Because this ministry doesn't only say they love Israel. They put feet on the ground. They do things I would never do. Are you kidding me? You're not going to find me out there during a hot day picking grapes or planting, it's fine. But why are they doing it? Because it's a fulfillment of prophecy. And strangers shall stand and pasture your sheep, and foreigners shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. I mean, they're just like, and they do it with such joy. I mean, I'd be complaining. Where's the air conditioning? Couldn't it be a cooler day? Hey, throw me a sweat rag because I can't handle this heat. And they love it. I think they're nuts. But I want you to know, Hayovel now, every single speaking engagement, somehow, almost all of my trips, whether it's Europe or here, are because of connections that I've made through Hayovel. Okay? I mean, these are the ministries that really make the difference. So if you haven't been, you got to come. And if you don't have the finances, rob a bank. If it's for a good purpose, I'm sure that you can get a rabbinic dispensation. No, don't do it, because then they're going to come after me. Look, this is amazing. I love these scriptures. For the children of Israel will remain for many days, having neither a king nor a prince, nor sacrifice, nor pillar, nor ephod, or teraphim, right? We were out of the, by the way, there has always been a continuous presence of Israel in the land. Small, but there has always been, it's never been broken off. Another piece of propaganda that you hear. And Ezekiel, and who knows how many others great in Florida, I came up with 71 different scriptures that talk about the return of Israel to the land. Why 71? Because we just had our 71st independence anniversary. And Ezekiel says, this is so, I'll take you out of all the people, and I will gather you from the lands in which you were scattered. And we were scattered everywhere, with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm and with poured out fury. Now, the Hebrew is much better. But okay, we'll settle for the English. What does it mean? I mean, seriously, Does God have to stretch his arm out? No. I think what it is it's a metaphor for God saying, I'm stretching out my arm. I'm trying to let all of humanity see what I'm doing. And and it's from if you come to a street in Tel Aviv, how many of you have been to Israel? Okay, that's a lousy start. If you come at street in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, you will see the most diversified collection of people, every color, every ethnic group with different customs, speaking every different language. It's amazing. And we're accused of being an apartheid state because no one in Israel looks like the other one. It's crazy. I mean, you walk into our hospitals. Our children have been in hospital. They're taken care of by Arab Muslim doctors. They're taken care of by Arab Christian doctors. Arabs in our hospital are taken care of Jewish doctors, Jewish Orthodox doctors, you name it, because we have respect for human life. You heard what happened with Syria, that Israel's northern hospitals took in thousands of Syrian patients and treated them, saved their lives for free. Now, this is a miracle. It happens every single day. More people come. It makes no sense. But it makes sense in God's realm. And he will raise a banner to the nations. That is exactly what is happening. God is trying to raise a banner to the nations and say, this is me. You can believe in me. You can remove the doubt because I'm doing exactly what I said I was going to do. Israel born in a day, who would ever think it would be possible that the United Nations, you know what would happen if they had the same vote today that they had back then? But it happened. Why? Because God put it on the hearts of the nations and said, if you don't, I'm going to cream you. Is a nation born at once that Zion both experienced birth pangs and bore her children? This is what I think he's saying. He's saying, can a mother go through pregnancy? What comes after? I'm so tired. Pregnancy, labor, and delivery all in one day? Seriously? God said, well, if I want it to happen, it's going to happen. And now there was a lot leading up to it, but heck, Israel became a nation in one day by a vote, an unseemingly impossible vote by the United Nations General Assembly, because he promised it. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bring your children from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up. Okay, now this is really cool. Now, if you're standing in Israel, who needed to get out? Starting masses of Jews from Israel in the north. Russia. Well, I mean, I grew up in Russia. My Russian friends in Israel tell me they used to have a permit to travel from one city to another city. The Iron Curtain was so hermetically sealed. God said, your time is up. Communism, another ism that's just going to fall apart. And it just melted and outstreamed. Well, to this date, probably about close to 1.5 million, because God said to the north, give them up. I mean, you see how cool this stuff is? And how are we going to communicate? There's every different language representing who knows how many different motza, how do you say, origins where people from. Well, do we pray, I don't know, Norwegian? Do we pray in who knows? No, what's going to happen is all the people are going to speak a pure language, unprecedented, that a language that lay dead for 2,000 years is resurrected and spoken again. No other nation. Hey, do you ever go to Italy and hear people speaking Latin? No. But in Israel, it happened. Now, this is very interesting because here, especially in Hebrew, it says they're going to speak a pure language. What is the impure form of Hebrew? As Jews traveled through Europe and all the different languages got mixed up in Hebrew, Yiddish. Well, when they came to Israel, why didn't they speak Yiddish? Well, because God said, you're not going to speak Yiddish. That's going to fall away. You're going to speak Hebrew, and that's what we speak. Some of us with the funniest accents you can possibly imagine. And the shekel, what are we going to use? We're going to use the shekel that was used a couple thousand years ago, just like the language. Shekel is used again. And it's going to be manna to you. You know what manna is? That's the stuff that, used to fall from heaven. And twice before Shabbat, so they didn't have to go out and gather it. Okay, but unfortunately, today, manna in the form of shekels does not fall from heaven yet. And here's the most amazing thing. What's going to happen? The cities are going to be rebuilt, and they're going to be better than they ever were. And look at, have any of you been to the camps in Europe? Been to Auschwitz 5 times. I've taken groups of European there twice on tours. And in Birkenau, which was really the death camp, that's where the crematorium and the gas chambers murdered masses. 1.5 million Jews. 1.5 million Jewish children. Can you imagine having lived through that period of time? And look what Isaiah says. I would say Isaiah is a fool. What does he say? Shall a woman forget her sucking child from having mercy in the child of her womb? In other words, is the world so evil that a mother will forget to breastfeed her own newborn child? Isaiah says, yes, the world will get so evil. Even that evil. In Birkenau, these 4 memorial stones, 4 different languages. And whenever I go, I always go up to the Mount of where Tommy and Sherry and all of them are, and I take rocks from the Mount of Blessing. And when we stand right here, each one of the people who've come with a group decide to recite a short psalm. And then they take a stone from Israel, from the Mount of Blessing, and to memorialize the victims, put it on the stone there. Because we commemorate that shows that we remember them. And here Isaiah says, right here, there are 2 burial pits. You can see one of them, and if you look, maybe you can see the second one, where the ashen remains of about 1.5 million Jews are buried in those ditches. But what does God say? Yeah, it can get so devastating. And you can question, where am I? Why didn't I intervene? But I'm telling you that even though this is the bleakest period in human history, I, God, will never, ever forget you, Israel. How do we know? Our son is a certified professional tour guide, and he's amazing. He knows Jewish history. He knows European history. We sit at the Shabbat table. I'm just fascinated. I just listen to him. In 1909, this is what Tel Aviv looked like. This is the first group of Jews that built the first housing subdivision in Tel Aviv. Who would think that anything productive can come from this? Hello? That's Tel Aviv today. There's no room to build. So now Tel Aviv and the surrounding area, there's only one direction they're building, and that's up. Look, it's, I mean, I think everyone who reads a Bible has to get so immensely excited about this, okay? Because life can get to be so difficult. And we can always say, okay, where's the evidence that God is, around us? It's in Israel, because when you come to Israel, you open up your Bible. I mean, for heaven's sakes, the miracles, just the scriptures, they just jump off the page. And I've been living there since 1983, and I still get excited every time. Look at Jerusalem. Oh, I mean, seriously? It was like only 100 years ago that the only people in Jerusalem that were there were living within the confines, the walls of the old city. And now Jerusalem is a city of almost 700,000 people, Jerusalem at night. Here my parents are, their first visit in Israel. Unfortunately, they're both gone. Their first visit in Israel, they went to a cafe in Tel Aviv. What do you see behind you? You know what that's called? That's called the Shalom Tower. I think it has 32, 33 stories to it. And that was the longest, that was the highest building, the tallest building, not only in Israel, but the entire Middle East. And now today, if you go to the top of the Shalom Tower, you can't see anything. You know why? Because your view is blocked by buildings that are twice as tall as the Shalom Tower. Why? Because he said, I am going to do better with Israel than in their beginnings. Oh, my goodness. And what about fruit? Every year, I used to go and speak in Norway because I love the cold. Where's the air conditioner vent again? I love the cold. And what do, the Norwegians? It's cold outside. It's so nice to come in. They boil you to death with the heat inside. Excuse me, but can you please turn the air conditioning on? No, Eliezer, I don't think so because it's about 10 below 0 centigrade. I'll turn it on anyway. Those who came, whom Jacob caused to take root. Israel first flourished and blossomed. They filled the face of the world with fruit. Desert and wasteland shall rejoice over them, and the plain shall rejoice and shall blossom like a rose. In Norway, which is one of the richest countries in the world because they have a vast amount of oil and natural gas in the North Sea, their climate is so harsh, they can't grow their own vegetables. So I went into one of their stores a number of years ago, and they had 8 fruits and vegetables. Guess what? Red peppers from Israel, green or yellow, our kids, we argue over that, from Israel. Watermelon from Israel, grapefruit from Israel, oranges from Israel, because all year long, this is what our fruits and vegetables look like. I got to get something else.
Israel's the #1 exporter of pet flowers.
And here's something that's really cool. Do people still use that? We were young, it was cool, it was mellow, it was, I don't know. Okay, I don't, where are you, my friend? I have a picture here. This is a list of all the things we have to get for our grandchildren. And this is my list. My wife just filled her list. She's home now. Any of you recognize her? Yes. Anne Frank. Any of you been to Netherlands, to the Frank home? Okay, yay, we have some. Okay. When I went to Bergen-Belsen, which is where she was murdered toward the end of the war, I got this picture of Anne Frank. It's been through thousands of hands. Thousands of people have prayed over it. Anne Frank, first time I went to her home and I went through and I saw where they were hidden, I wanted to do something special. So I went around the corner into a flower shop and I said, I would like So right around the corner, I don't know if you saw it, but there's a statue of Anne Frank. So I wanted to do something special. I wanted to say the prayer for the dead, the Kaddish. So I went into a flower shop, and I bought 18 multi-color roses. You know why 18? Nope. 18 spells the Hebrew word chai. Okay, life. So I went into this florist, and I said, takes out this magnificent bouquet of 18 multicolored tulips. You know, the Netherlands, Holland is the tulip capital of the world. So I said, it's really true. Holland, you do grow, whatever the word is, the most magnificent tulips in the world. He said, sir, I have to tell you something. This is not the tulip season in Holland. These are imported from Israel. Because we've got these and this and this, and because the bottom line is, look at history. All the greatest, most powerful, militarily superior empires in history are nada. They no longer, but the people that should not have existed logically, we not only exist, we're prospering. Because we love life. This is a Syrian baby with an Israeli soldier. His parents were killed, brought over to Israel, taken care of by Israeli soldiers. Okay, this is an Iranian journalist who wrote something, a blog that was pro-Israel. Her life was threatened. She got out of Iran, and guess who granted her asylum? Israel! Because these are the things we do. Okay, this is my home. If you go up on a mountain by where I live, this is what you see. The entire coastal area of Tel Aviv, from Haifa in the north down to Gedera in the south, where there are about 3.5 million of our population. That is where our military industry is. That's where our high-tech industry is. Why don't we just give this back to the PLO, and instead of having to shoot their missiles up and come down, they can just shoot mortars directly at buildings. I've taken a lot of politicians, congressmen, congresswomen, to this spot, and they've said, now we finally understand. No, it's not Beitel, Karnei Shomron. And that's why we must maintain superiority. And if you've read anything about Israel's military since 1948, if we haven't been able to make it, design it, we steal it and get away with it. But this is what we want. We want peace. Yet to come, the fulfillment of this prophecy. Anyone, you know how incredible the miracle of Israel is? Anyone want to tell me, this is a picture, which is a statue, which is in Auschwitz, depicting what was left of European Jewry, the survivors. What do you see? You see a people who are starved, who are humiliated, who have lost their families, who have nothing to live for. Anyone want to explain to me, how did we go from this to 3 years later defending a country and winning the War of Independence against 6 attacking Arab armies? I only have one answer. So, this is what's exciting. And this is a warning to you when you go to Israel, you better drive carefully, because you may be following the transportation of Joseph's bones. Okay? But really, it's a continuation of the first Exodus. It's exciting. The real miracle of Israel for someone who has been to the camps. My mother lost her entire extended family in Dachau and in Bergen-Belsen. This is what absolutely amazes me. You know, we've got so much land. You know, and what I always like to say when I'm somewhere where, sometimes I've spoken in churches where they don't have a clue, and they are all, it's just not in their, I mean, then they come up to me afterwards and they say, why didn't I ever hear this from my preacher? So I said, that's not a question that you asked me. So, and I use this. The king will answer and say to them, truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of the least of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me. That is an ethos, if that's the right word, that the church needs to live by. Because Jesus was a Jew. All the people around him were Jews. So whatever you do to the least of those Jews who are around me, you do to me. The church has failed. They have really failed. And we have to be out there, and we have to be good ambassadors for Israel. Okay? Because it's so hard. Once you get hate into your veins, it is so hard to get it out. And we're talking about removing 2,000 years of hate. But it can be done. And I have videos, I'm not going to show them now, that show people who hated Jews. And people, Arabs who hated Israelis, that God has turned their hearts from hate to love. It can happen. And I don't believe in a peace settlement. I think that the only time there will be peace will be when their hearts are changed from hate to love. Because when they are, my goodness, they can benefit. They can get so much economic benefit from Israel if they would just simply love us and learn to live with us. We have so much to give them. But it's just not there. A few here and there it happens to. That's what I think we need to pray for. So I'd like to just end by, there's a prayer for the state of Israel, and if someone would like to lead the prayer, I think it's just really nice for us to be able to say it together collectively. Anyone want to lead? I'm too tired. And then I'm going to let my wife do the talking. There's a 18-minute video about her art.
Our Father in heaven, Rock and Redeemer of Yisrael, bless the state of Yisrael, the first manifestation, the approach of our redemption. Shield it with your loving kindness, envelop it in your peace, and bestow your light and truth upon its leaders, messengers, and advisors, and grace them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend your holy land. Grant them deliverance and adorn them in a mantle of victory. Ordain peace in the land and grant its inhabitants eternal happiness. Lead them swiftly and upright to your city, Zion and Jerusalem, and above your name, as it is written in the Torah of your servant Moses. Even if your outcasts are at the ends of the world, from where the Lord your God will gather you, from there he will fetch you, and the Lord your God will bring you to the land that your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it, and he will make you more than prosperous and more numerous than your fathers. Draw our hearts together to revere and venerate your name, and to observe all the precepts of your Torah, and to send us quickly the Mashiach, son of David, agent of your vindication, to redeem those who await your deliverance. Manifest yourself in the splendor of your boldness before the eyes of all the inhabitants of your world. And may everyone endowed with the soul affirm that the Lord, God of Israel, is King, and his dominion is absolute. Amen. Forevermore.
Amen. Okay, now you get to meet my amazing wife of 40, I don't know if I can count that high, 43 years. And 4 children, 8 going on 9 grandchildren. This is where you're supposed to say, but Eliezer, you don't look so old. Yeah, she's a very well-known Israeli artist, and it's wonderful now because I sell her art when I travel. It gives you the opportunity to put amazing Hebrew calligraphy of the scriptures on your walls to bless your homes, to give as absolutely unique gifts, and that's what covers our travel expenses. Okay, let's see, Ellen, where are you? Oh, how do I get the sound going?
People are often interested in our life and lifestyle and how scriptures and these pictures connect to us today. I'll use the cycle of the year to help explain. Here's parting of the Red Sea, which reminds us of Passover and how we sit telling and retelling the story of the
Start over,
Exodus.
Ellen.
This creation evolved by writing the entire book of Exodus. We're constantly connected to our past, feeling as though we were there by reliving and
Let's try it again. You knew that at some point the audio-visual, all of that would not cooperate, right? So now you are witnessing it. Please work.
People are often interested in our life and lifestyle and how scriptures and these pictures connect to us today. I'll use the cycle of the year to help explain. Here's parting of the Red Sea, which reminds us of Passover and how we sit telling and retelling the story of the Exodus. This creation evolved by writing the entire book of Exodus. We're constantly connected to our past, feeling as though we were there by reliving and retelling the story every year, making it real for today. As you can see, I love what I do. I love living in Israel. Song of Solomon is the first of all of these microcalligraphy artworks that I created. It expresses God's love for his people. Song of Solomon is actually read on the Shabbat that falls during Passover. After Passover, we celebrate a holiday for modern-day Israel, Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. Here we have the design that combines the flag of Israel today with the outline of the map of today's Israel. It's created using the words of the Israeli national anthem, Hatikva, the hope. The focus of this image and the anthem is the land of Zion. Jerusalem is highlighted in the center with the Star of David created using the ancient walls of Jerusalem instead of the standard blue
See the
star.
walls?
I wrote Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem, 156 times because the letters of the word Zion, Zion, break down letter by letter and equal the number 156. After celebrating Yom HaTzmaut, we continue to the next holiday, Shavuot, or Pentecost. This piece is Tree of Life. Its design is created using the entire book of Ruth. The flowers and the grass are the book of Ruth, reaching King David here at the bottom of the tree, under and supporting her roots.
Can read David there?
Here's an opportunity to explain the difference
there.
between my microcalligraphy artwork and other artists' micrography, who execute a watercolor painting of Ruth, cutting sheaves of wheat, the piece an entire watercolor painting. But where's the writing? Only Ruth's braid contains text, written in black ink. Perhaps the text continues in the border as well. A beautiful picture, but only a small portion with text. Here, the entire text is the composition, and the composition is the text. The tree trunk is filled with the words sung as the Torah scrolls are returned to the ark after the week's portion is read. She's a tree of life to those who hold on to her, and her supporters are joyous and given peace. Encircling the entire tree is the blessing of Sarah, Rachel, Rebecca, and Leah that continues with a beautiful blessing for the entire family. Woman of valor. The words of Proverbs 31, 10 through 31 create these biblical women. We start with the matriarch Sarah. Miriam is next to her, depicted singing praise to God after crossing through the parted Red Sea, the Passover story. After Passover, we fast approach the holiday of Shavuot, during which the book of Ruth is read in the synagogue Shavuot morning. Here is Ruth gathering sheaves of wheat. Continuing is Queen Esther. The story of Purim shines through her, a story of redemption. Purim is celebrated a few weeks before Passover. Then there's the prophetess Devorah, the fairest of judges and guiding light for all of us throughout history. May these women of valor bring a lifetime of continuing inspiration to each of us. It's written 30 times, 12 plus 18. 12, the aged girl begins her journey to become a woman of valor in her own right. Plus life, Chai, 18. If you've been to Jerusalem, you've seen the beauty of what has been built or rebuilt. But you know that the wall, the Kotel, is what remains after the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago on the 9th of Av, the Jewish date that falls in July or August. 70 names of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, written in gold, hovers over the ancient western wall. Jerusalem has 70 different unique spiritual names. I wrote these names in glowing gold microcalligraphy to create the word Jerusalem here. May Jerusalem of gold be completely rebuilt soon in our days. The original of this design is actually an embroidered satchel that I made for our second son-in-law's prayer shawl, then created this artwork from it. Jerusalem Star of David, Psalms 122. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, Psalms 126, verses from Zechariah and Isaiah and more. Isaiah 62:1. I've set watchmen upon the walls, O Jerusalem. Take no rest until he makes Jerusalem a praise in the earth. This intricate piece depicts the rebuilt temple in the heart of the picture. Jerusalem, forever the center of the world, the center of our hearts. As you know, the Jewish year is a cycle. We've shared the holidays, starting here with Passover, reaching the saddest day, the 9th of Av, and the destruction of the temples. But then our attention turns again to joy and new beginnings, a new year, Rosh Hashanah, that will, God willing, bring us many blessings. Verses from the deep, heartfelt prayers recited on Rosh Hashanah, the new year, create these pomegranates. I inscribe these blessings 17 times. May you merit the fulfillment of the 18th time, the number that signifies life, this and every new year. We begin in Shabbat and every holiday with candle lighting. These graceful Shabbat candles are created with Proverbs 31:10 through 31, woman of valor. The flames are created using the beautiful blessing for the physical and spiritual health of the family. The halos of light surrounding the flames are the blessings for the children. The halo on the right is the blessing of Ephraim and Manasseh for sons. The left halo, the daughter's blessing of Sarah, Rachel, Rebecca, and Leah. I'm so blessed to bestow these blessings on our children and grandchildren every week. Down the center flows the blessing recited while lighting the Shabbat candles. I mentioned how blessed we feel to live in our home in Israel. This piece, Birkat HaBayit, blessing of the home, is a beautiful view from our dining room window. This is what I see each day as I say my prayers standing at this window facing the direction of Jerusalem. I ask myself, what can I do with this beautiful view? This is it. They dwelt in safety, each man under his vine and under his fig tree, and they built houses and inhabit them, and they planted vineyards and eat the fruit of them. And my chosen ones shall long enjoy the work of their hands, for they are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. May your families and your homes be so blessed. The strong and proud eagle. Isaiah 40, comfort, comfort my people. The letters of the word love, ahava, equal the number 13. This entire chapter is written 13 times to create these cliffs and valleys. 13, ahava, God's love for his people. The last verse of the chapter on wings of eagles is written 208 times, creating the eagle. 208 is also divisible by 13, but leaves a remainder of 3. The number 3 in Judaism represents strength, permanence, and that this shall come to pass, amen, which in Hebrew also has 3 letters. Ezekiel 36. The shofar is blowing, the ruined cities are rebuilt, the fields tilled and sown. The prophecy is coming to life as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's spirits watch over us. Written 50 times, reminding us of the Jubilee
Which is
year.
Hayovel.
Looking like an ancient mosaic found in archaeological digs, Jacob's blessing to Judah creates Lion of Judah. The blessing from Genesis is written 100 times. 100 is a number that represents power. How appropriate for Judah, the future king. There are specific designated blessings for before and after eating food. The blessing after eating bread is the longest. This composition was created using the entire grace after meals recited after eating bread. Originally, this was designed for the cover of the booklets placed on the tables at our
Saw the
oldest
shape-
daughter's wedding.
Shape of a chuppah.
The tomb of the patriarchs. Oh, the text is the story of the Machpelah cave. It's purchased by Abraham and the burial of the beloved matriarch Sarah, written here in order to create this powerful image 6 times. An inscription for each one of our 6 matriarchs and patriarchs buried here. If you've been to Hebron, you are seeing and walking on living biblical history, just as the artwork represents. This piece is a memorial to all those throughout history who have suffered through the hands of our ever-present enemies. It is specifically for 3 children, our neighbors, who lost their lives in a terrorist attack in our neighborhood on a Sunday night 2 weeks before Purim, February 2002. Throughout the centuries, Jews have prayed for the day when we will return to Israel from all 4 corners of the earth, when the light of redemption will be upon us. We see the passages from Isaiah, passages that speak of comfort and the day of redemption, forming the people dancing and streaming towards Jerusalem rebuilt, the temple rebuilt. We see the twinkling stars in the sky, reminding us of the blessing. The day will come when we will be as many as the stars in the sky. All these passages bring me comfort and peace of mind in difficult times. Psalms 18. King David wrote Psalms 18, Chai, life, to thank God for teaching him to be victorious in battle. It's a song of deliverance. Just as David rose up successfully against his enemies, this tank represents our present struggle against those who want to destroy us. Psalms 18, which means life, is written 3 times, which again is a number that represents strength and guidance to successfully fight our enemies. May we always continue to be guided and delivered safely from the battle against those who are determined to destroy us. Blessing Israel. I will bless them that bless you, and in you shall all the families of the earth be blessed. This design is of the famous Israeli cactus, the sabra, in beautiful bloom, prickly and tough on the outside, sweet on the inside, just like Israelis are known to be. This is actually the only piece designed with both Hebrew and English. The almond tree, Jeremiah 1:11 through 12. And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, What do you see, Jeremiah? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. And the Lord said to me, You have seen well, for I hasten my word to accomplish it. As the verses express, Jeremiah saw the branch of an almond tree bear with no bloom, symbolizing the fact that the prophecy God shared with Jeremiah would come to fruition quickly. The destruction of the temple, if God's word was not heeded, but also rebuilding in the future. The almond branch in bloom represents the continuation of God's promise and prophecy, when the Jewish nation, Am Yisrael, will bloom, returning from all 4 corners of the earth to the rebuilt temple and ruined cities rebuilt. May we enjoy the beauty of the blooming almond tree, as well as the blooming of the fulfilled prophecies soon in our days. Amen. Dancing for joy, the words from Purim read from the scroll of Esther. ליהודים הייתה אורה ושמחה וששון ועיקר. Dance across the page, along with these carefree figures representing the joy and fun experienced on this wondrous holiday. This brings the holiday cycle we began full circle, as Purim is 1 month before Passover. My very first paper cut, surrounded by the ancient fortified walls and magnificent gateways into the city of Jerusalem, the majestic third temple rises. The 10 Commandments, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Verses depicting the land, the Eretz, Zvat, Chalav, Dvash, the land flowing with milk and honey. Isaiah 52, Awake, awake, put on your strength, Zion. He has redeemed Jerusalem. And all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. Psalms 122, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Isaiah 66, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What house could you build for me? And it shall be that the new moon to new moon, and from Shabbat to Shabbat, all flesh shall come to bow down before me. These are part of the microcalligraphy text cut into the delicate thin lines of the filigree weave of stars. My newest piece, the second paper cut, Creation. Each day, each heart vibrantly carries us to the next, expressing its individual creation and existence with that day's biblical text, creating the heart's design. Each heart flows from one to the next, bringing us full circle as the cycle of the weeks and seasons evolve. Each week, Shabbat glows golden, full of blessings, centering each of us as we celebrate the gifts God has bestowed on us within the world and universe He created. Now for some fun. Noah. The building of Noah's Ark and the animals brought on board create these colorful pieces. We all know that the animals were brought on board 2 by 2, 1 male, 1 female, but it was different for the animals designated as kosher. 7 male, 7 female of each of these animals were brought on board. Therefore, the scriptural text is written 7 times. I say a prayer first thing in the morning after waking. Modeh ani, I give thanks. Thankful for the return of my soul to my body. Many parents recite this short prayer of thanks for their small children each morning, and they recite it with them, as I did with our children, and they now do with theirs. Each night before going to sleep, I say the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. While reciting the first line, traditionally one covers one's eyes in order to concentrate. As you can see here, all the animals are covering their eyes except for the hippo, who's already sound asleep. Here we have the entire world is a very narrow bridge. The important thing is never to fear. Here you see all the different animals playing together, the giraffe and the elephant creating an amusing bridge. So much to learn from these words and so much to teach our children and each other. The entire book of Jonah read on Yom Kippur is written in all forms of sea creatures, swimming and floating along with Jonah in the belly of this frolicking whale, written 3 times for the 3 days and 3 nights Jonah spent having a whale of a time. And I've had a whale of a time sharing all of this with you. May any of these pictorial scriptures that you hang on your wall inspire and strengthen you for years to come, so that you don't have to remember everything I've said. With any purchase you make, you receive a full description, more detailed than what I've shared with you here today. Thank you so much, and blessings to you.
Okay, actually, Ellen and I were supposed to be in Taiwan now because she is on display with another famous artist in Taipei in the gallery. She could actually be in 2 galleries in Taipei, but we couldn't go because we came to the States instead because this is the 1 year the stone laying. Is that how you say it? Hanachat Matzeva. The dedication of the headstone, right, for her mother who passed away a year ago. So, just so proud of her. It's really wonderful. And you ask her, how does she do it? Always points up and says, it's a gift from Hashem, which is, I can appreciate because I can't even draw a stick figure. Thank you very much. You're patient people. And I have everything here except for the paper cut of the Temple Mount, which, should you want, that's the most expensive piece. We print them one at a time because they're expensive. And I have everything here. While I travel, always the same sale, which is if you purchase 2, you can choose a 3rd one as a gift. We take credit cards, checks, cash, whatever you'd like, yeah. Does anyone have questions? Thank you very much for not having questions. I'm tired. No, I'm just kidding. If you have questions, go ahead.
Raise your hand if you have any questions. We have Yoshua with the mic here.
You're such lovely, almost lovely people.
This is a kind of a political question, but what's Israel's feelings or general feelings about Donald Trump?
We like him.
And why?
Because he's the only president over the last 30, 35 years since the United States committed to moving the embassy to Jerusalem, who actually followed through and didn't sign a waiver every 6 months to put it off, number 1. Number 2, he is the only president that has come along and said, look, every previous administration has been talking about the 2-state solution since the 6-Day War. It hasn't worked. It's not going to work, okay? There's a different reality here. You have 600,000 to 700,000 Jews that are living in Judea, Samaria, and East Jerusalem. obviously we're not going to ask 700,000. Okay. He basically has said to the Palestinian Authority, get real. Okay, there's a reality here. You want to make peace, stop with your insidiously redundant and totally unachievable demands. And he's really the first president that has realized the reality. And because of that reality, he has come down there. Israel has ultimately always been scapegoated for the lack of a peace settlement. It didn't matter whether it was a Republican president or a Democratic president. The onus has always been put on Israel's shoulder. And Trump has come out and, said things like, get real, Palestinian Authority. These people are here to stay, okay? And you have to give up your dream of wiping them, okay, off the map. It's not realistic. You have to realize that the so-called refugees that they claim were thrown out of their homes during the War of Independence and the Six-Day War, they're not coming back to their homes, okay? There are refugees all over the world. Why has no other country population demanded to go back to the homes that they were forced out of, okay? I mean, this is an earth of refugees. And so he has really taken a position which is extremely pro-Israel and said that if there's going to be any viable peace process, okay, you have to give up basically the dream of wanting to destroy Israel. You got to admit, you lost. Now let's move forward. No president has ever said that because it's always been appeasement. It's always been appease the Arabs, appease the other countries surrounding Israel. Appeasement doesn't work, and he's really, I think, the first president. Do I like him, his personality? Absolutely not. Do I think that economically he's very good for this country? I think it's the right direction, even though obviously the Congress can't decide anything. What? I don't want to get too. I follow American politics very closely, and I don't know. It's really a shame if it were someone, if it were the Democratic, someone in a Democratic president that was taking the kind of criticism that Trump takes, everyone would be shouting from the top of every mountain. Right. I don't like his personality, okay, but I think he's being extremely victimized. But he's good for Israel, and that's number one on my list. I'm so glad we had this time together. Pleasure.
Please take a look at all of the artwork and purchase them. And if anybody is inspired to help him with his work as well, we can feel free to share that with him as well. Thank you for coming tonight, and feel free to stay. We'll turn some lights on. There's food, there's coffee, and I'm sure if you were too embarrassed to ask a question over the speaker, you can ask him in person. Toda rabba. Baruchot Alech.
למען חלוי קיינו עשה ולא אלונו ראה ימיד עשינו דלים וריקים למען חלוי קיינו עשה Dalim vereikin Hanashama lach veyaguf palach chuvusam alam alach Hanashama malach Shama lach veyaguf palach chuvusam alam alach Hanashama malach למען חלוי קיינו עשה ולא אלונו ראה ימיד עשינו דלים וריקים הנשמה לך ויגוף His holy name. Hallelujah, Adonai. Hallelujah, Adonai. Hallelujah, Adonai. Baruch Hu et Shemo. Hallelujah, Adonai. Hallelujah, Adonai. Hallelujah, Adonai. Baruch Hu et Shemo. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord and bless His holy name. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord. Bless His holy name. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord and bless His holy name. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord and bless His holy name. Hallelujah, Adonai. Hallelujah, Adonai. Hallelujah, Adonai. Baruch Hu et Shemo. Hallelujah, Adonai. Hallelujah, Adonai. Hallelujah, Adonai. Baruch Hu et Shemo. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord and bless His holy name. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord. Come, let's praise the Lord. Bless His holy name. Bless His holy name. Bless His holy name.
How I praise you, Lord, rock of my salvation. You I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountain tops, let my voice proclaim the tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is His name. Messiah of Israel is He, restorer of our Judge of Israel. Now we praise you for your joy, love that never fades. How I praise you, Lord, rock of my salvation. You I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountaintops, let my voice proclaim the tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. The tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. The tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. I only touched the hem of his garment. As to his side, I stole. Amid the crowd that gathered around him, and straightway I was whole. I came in fear and trembling before him. I knew my Lord had come. I felt that from him virtue had healed me. The mighty deed was done. I touched the hem of his garment, and I was then set free. His saving power that very hour gave new life to me.
He turned and said, "Daughter, be of good comfort. Your faith has made you whole."
My Lord has made me whole.
And peace that passes all understanding with gladness filled her soul.
My soul.
No more let fear and trembling restrain you. Oh, come before him now.
Before him now.
I know in love and mercy he's waiting to heal you by his power. Oh, touch the hem of his garment, and you too shall be free. His saving power, this very hour, shall give new life to thee. No more let fear and trembling restrain you. Oh, come before him now. I know in love and mercy he's waiting to heal you by his power. I'll touch the hem of your garment, and I shall be set free. Your saving power, this very hour, shall give you life to me. I'll touch the hem of your garment, and I shall be set free. Your saving power, this very hour, shall give you life to me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam
And seeing the multitudes, he went up on a mountain. And when he was seated, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth, and he taught them. And he said,
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The
עדיין אוהלם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לייס נעשה וחפצי כל אזי מלך שמוי נקרא עדיין אוהלם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לייס נעשה וחפצי כל אזי מלך שמי נקרא ויחרי ככלוי סקוי לבדוי ימלוך נוירה והוא היה והוא היבא והוא יהיה בספרה עדיין אילם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לייס נעשה וחפצי כל אזי מלך שמי נקרא עדיין אוהלם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לייס נעשה וחפצי כל אזי מלך שמוי נקרא עדיין אוהלם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לייס נעשה וחפצי כל אזי מלך שמי נקרא ויחרי ככלוי סקוי לבדוי ימלוך נוירה והוא היה והוא היבא והוא יהיה בספרה עדיין אילם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לייס נעשה וחפצי כל אזי מלך שמי נקרא Well וחפצויקה אזי מלך שמי נקרא בידי אפקיד רוחי בייסי שם והעירה ואם רוחי גבי יעשי השם לי ולא יירא השם לי ולא יירא
אשר אנוכי מצווך היום, כל Israel, for he will redeem his people. Sing hallelujah. 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 Sing hallelujah. Unto Abraham's land he will draw us as a shepherd gathers his sheep. He will bring us back to Israel. Sing hallelujah. 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 Sing hallelujah.
For the set time has come, and the ransomed of the Lord are returning to Zion. For it is not the arm of the flesh, but the arm of the Lord that has restored Israel to her land. For all these things must come to pass before Yeshua returns. He who has ears to hear, let him hear.
Sharti bekir bech am nivedal vehem yikhu magen b'shem Adonai she'erit Israel she'erit Israel vehem yikhu magen b'shem Adonai. the remnant of Israel, the remnant of Israel. They will take refuge in the name of the Lord. Shout for joy, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O Israel. Rejoice and exult with all of your heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. O daughter of Hisharti bekirbech, amani ve'edal, vehem yichu, magen b'shem Adonai. She'erit Israel, she'erit Israel, vehem yichu, magen b'shem Adonai. Rani, Rani, Bat Zion Arit Israel. Al si simchi bechol lev Bat Yerushalayim. The remnant of Israel. She'erit Israel, she'erit Israel. She'erit Israel, she'erit Israel. Kain berama nishma nehi bechi samru